Chen left the council chamber, ignoring the dismissive glances from the Arcturian delegation as she passed. Their crystalline bodies refracted the light into prism patterns across the polished floor, beautiful, like everything in the Concordet's massive space station. The Arcturians, with their silicon-based physiology and collective consciousness, considered themselves the pinnacle of evolution. Humans were merely carbon curiosities to them. "Ambassador Chen," a voice called. She turned to see diplomatic attaché Xanthor hurrying toward her, his four legs clicking rapidly against the floor. The Mendari were among the few species that showed humans any respect. "A moment, please." Chen paused, maintaining her practiced diplomatic smile. "Of course, attaché." Xanthor lowered his voice, mandibles twitching nervously. "The Voth destroyed my cousin's research outpost yesterday. The council isn't telling us everything." His compound eyes darted around the corridor. "My people fear we're next. The Concordat has extensive defensive capabilities," Chen replied, the rehearsed line flowing easily. "But they're not using them." Xanthor's antennae flattened in distress. "High Command is keeping our best ships in reserve while border worlds burn. Something isn't right." Chen placed a reassuring hand on his exoskeletal shoulder. "I'll submit an official inquiry on behalf of Earth." "They won't listen to you." "Probably not," she agreed with a wry smile. "But it creates a record. Records become patterns. Patterns become evidence." The Mendari studied her with newfound curiosity. "You're more strategic than you appear, Ambassador." "Most humans are," she replied. "It's why we've survived this long." After Xanthor departed, Chen's neural implant gave a subtle alert. Ducking into a privacy alcove, she initiated the quantum-encrypted connection to Mars Command. The signal bounced through 7 relay points, disguised as routine atmospheric data transmissions. Kagawa's face appeared, the hologram flickering slightly. Deep shadows under his eyes revealed he hadn't slept in days. "Elena," he greeted her. "What's the situation?" "Worse than we thought. The Voth are targeting research stations, not just military outposts. They're systematically eliminating the Concordet's technological advantages." "Smart," Kagawa muttered. And the council response? "Fragmented. The older species are arguing for patience, the younger for immediate retaliation. Nobody's looking at the strategic pattern." She lowered her voice further. "The Arcturians are holding their fleet in reserve. I believe they may be planning to negotiate separately with the Voth." Kagawa's expression hardened. Betrayal from within. "It's just a theory, but..." A notification flashed across Kagawa's screen, interrupting her. His eyes widened as he read it. "What is it?" Chen asked. "HMS Eris just completed its final systems check. We're ahead of schedule." A grim smile crossed his face. "Tell me, Ambassador, how would the Council react if we offered a small demonstration of Earth's capabilities? Nothing too alarming. Perhaps assistance with evacuating civilians from the Proxima colony." Chen understood immediately. The Voth have been avoiding direct confrontation with major Concordat forces. They might not realize what they're facing. Precisely. A single planet ship operating under strict defensive protocols. Chen considered the proposal, calculating diplomatic fallout against tactical advantage. The Council would be shocked, but the civilian evacuations would give us moral high ground. We could present it as humanitarian assistance. And if the Voth take the bait, Chen's eyes gleamed with cold determination. Then we'll have our field test under optimal conditions. Kagawa nodded. "I'll alert Captain Okonkwo to prepare HMS Eris for deployment. Estimated arrival at Proxima Centauri in 48 hours. I'll prepare the diplomatic groundwork," Chen replied. "The Council meets again tomorrow to discuss evacuation priorities. I'll ensure Proxima is at the top of the list." As the connection terminated, Chen stepped out of the alcove, her diplomatic mask sliding back into place. Around her, Concordat officials hurried past, still not bothering to make eye contact with the representative of such an insignificant world. She smiled to herself. In 48 hours, nobody in the galaxy would underestimate humanity again. Kagawa stepped into the quantum elevator that would take him from the Mars Command Center to the manufacturing levels. As the doors closed, he pressed his palm against the biometric scanner. Authorization. Kagawa. Marcus. Solar Defense Initiative Director. Destination. Project Hecate. The elevator plunged downward, bypassing the officially documented levels. Few outside the inner circle knew that Mars wasn't just humanity's first terraforming project. It was the manufacturing hub for the most ambitious engineering effort in history. The doors opened to reveal a cavernous assembly bay where a massive dimensional fold drive core was undergoing final calibration. Each of the 5 planet ships required a core capable of warping spacetime around objects the size of small worlds. The engineering challenges had seemed insurmountable until Dr. Fatima Rahman's breakthrough in exotic matter manipulation 15 years ago. General Kagawa, a voice called. He turned to see Dr. Rahman herself approaching, her lab coat unable to hide the exoskeletal support system she now required. The radiation from her early experiments had taken its toll, but her mind remained as sharp as ever. Fatima, I didn't expect to find you planetside. She gestured toward the drive core. Final calibrations for Hamya. We're implementing the improvements from Eris's test data. How significant are the upgrades? 37% reduction in dimensional stress during transit, she replied with professional pride. We've also improved the neural interface cooling systems. Should reduce operator neurological damage by at least half. Kagawa nodded, the weight of every brain-damaged pilot and engineer heavy on his conscience. Good. That's good. She studied him with knowing eyes. Having second thoughts, Marcus? No, he answered firmly. But I won't pretend the cost isn't steep. The Voth wouldn't hesitate to eradicate us, Rahman reminded him. They've done it before to other species. I know. He gestured toward a nearby viewport. Through it, they could see a massive fabrication chamber where mechanical arms the size of skyscrapers assembled components for Hamya's weapon systems. I just wonder if we've gone too far. These aren't just warships anymore. They're apocalypse machines. Rahman's expression softened. That's why you're in charge, not some trigger-happy military hardliner. You understand what we've built. Their conversation was interrupted by Lieutenant Osei approaching with urgency in her step. Sir, we've detected unusual activity near Jupiter. A Concordat science vessel has deployed deep scanning probes toward our Europan mining operation. Are the gravity signature mimickers functioning? Rahman asked sharply. Yes, Doctor, but they're using quantum resonance scanners. They might detect the difference in mass distribution. Kagawa frowned. How long until Eris is ready for deployment? Final systems check is complete, Osei reported. Captain Okonkwo reports ready for mission commencement. Then let's proceed with the Proxima operation as planned. It will draw attention away from our solar system. He turned back to Rahman. Accelerate the timetable for Pluto and Ceres. If one planet ship is revealed, we'll need the others ready sooner than expected. As they walked toward the Tactical Planning Center, a low rumble vibrated through the facility. Far above, on Mars' surface, dust storms provided convenient cover for the occasional seismic activity caused by the massive manufacturing operations below. The indigenous populations of the last 3 worlds the Voth conquered didn't have warning, Rahman said quietly. They didn't have time to prepare. We've had decades, and we've used them well, Kagawa agreed, accessing the secure terminal that would connect him to HMS Eris. The screen illuminated, showing the bridge of humanity's first planet ship. Captain Okonkwo stood at attention, her dark skin contrasting with the white uniform of the Solar Defense Initiative. Captain, you have authorization to proceed with Operation First Light, Kagawa announced. Primary objective, assist with Proxima Centauri evacuations. Secondary objective, engage any Voth forces threatening civilian transports. Understood, sir, Okonkwo replied. And if we encounter significant Voth resistance? Kagawa's expression remained carefully neutral for the official record. You are authorized to demonstrate Earth's full defensive capabilities, Captain. Show them exactly what humanity is capable of." Behind him, on another screen, telemetry data showed the Concordat science vessel continuing its scans near Europa. Their time of hiding in plain sight was coming to an end, one way or another. "Godspeed, Sophia," he added more personally. "Make it count." "We will, sir," Okonkwo promised. HMS Eris. Out. Inside HMS Eris, 5 kilometers beneath the dwarf planet's reconstructed surface, Navigation Officer Maya Emery initiated the final systems check before dimensional jump. Her neural interface hummed against her temples, the quantum processors translating her thoughts into navigational commands faster than verbal orders ever could. "Dimensional coordinates locked," she announced, her voice steady despite the searing pain building behind her eyes. The interface suppressors could only block so much neural feedback. "Jump calculations complete." Captain Okonkwo acknowledged with a nod, her attention divided between tactical displays showing the Voth fleet's position and status reports from the engineering deck. Eris wasn't just a vessel. It was a self-contained world with 40,000 crew members distributed throughout its hollowed interior. Specialized habitation rings rotated to provide gravity in residential sectors, while the military and command centers used artificial gravitational fields. "All sections report ready, Captain," First Officer Takeda reported. "Hull integrity at optimum. Weapon systems primed but dormant as ordered." "Very good." Okonkwo's voice carried across the bridge, calm and resolute. "This is not a test, people. This is the moment we've trained for. Concordat forces are being overwhelmed. Civilian evacuation ships are under fire." She paused, meeting the eyes of her bridge crew one by one. "Humanity steps out of the shadows today. Let's show the galaxy what that means." She opened the ship-wide communication channel. "All hands, secure for dimensional translation. This is not a drill." Throughout the massive vessel, crew members moved with practiced precision. In the medical bays, doctors prepared for the inevitable interface injuries that would follow the jump. In engineering, technicians monitored the exotic matter containment fields that powered the dimensional drive. In the residential sectors, families of long-term crew members gathered in designated safe zones. "Translation in 30 seconds, Emery announced, sweat beading on her forehead as the neural load increased. Okonkwo activated a private channel to Weapons Officer Chen Liu. "Contingency Protocol Theta remains in effect, Commander. If the Voth response exceeds projected parameters, you are authorized to deploy gravitational weapons without secondary confirmation." "Understood, Captain." Liu's eyes were hard. His family had been among the colonists killed during a Voth exploratory mission near Alpha Centauri decades earlier, before the Concordat had officially acknowledged the Voth as a threat. 10 seconds to translation, Emery called out, her voice strained. The enormous energies being channeled through the core of Eris created ripples in space-time that spread outward through the Kuiper Belt. On Pluto, Ceres, Makemake, and Hamia, monitoring stations tracked these ripples, gathering data that would refine their own jump capabilities. 5, 4, 3. In her command chair, Okonkwo said a silent prayer, not for success, but for wisdom. What they were about to do would change the course of galactic history. 2, 1. Translation initiated. Space folded around the massive vessel, reality itself seeming to bend and distort. For a moment that felt like eternity, Eris existed in a state between dimensions, neither here nor there. Then, with a flash of exotic energy that temporarily blinded sensors across the Proxima Centauri system, the planet ship emerged directly behind the Voth fleet. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Trellick stared in disbelief at the sensor readings. "Impossible," he whispered. All four eyes widened in shock. "That can't be a ship. It's the size of a..." Incoming transmission from the unknown vessel, his communications officer interrupted, mandibles clicking in agitation. Captain Okonkwo's image appeared on the main view screen, her expression composed and professional. Voth vessels. This is Captain Sophia Okonkwo of HMS Eris, Earth Defense Force. You are firing upon civilian evacuation ships in violation of Concordat conventions. Cease your attack immediately, or we will be forced to intervene. For 3 heartbeats, silence held across the battlefield. Then the Voth commander's face appeared on a split screen, his reptilian features contorted with contempt. Earth vessel. This is War Captain Zexfor of the Hegemony Dreadnought Indomitable Will. Your primitive species has no standing toe. His transmission cut off abruptly as Okonkwo nodded to Liu. Target their weapon systems only, she ordered. Minimal force demonstration. Minimal force, Liu acknowledged, his fingers dancing across the tactical console. A single energy pulse, precisely calculated and microscopically focused, lanced out from Eris. It struck the Voth flagship with surgical precision, disabling its main weapon array without breaching the hull. As the Voth fleet scrambled to respond to this unexpected threat, Okonkwo opened a channel to Admiral Trellix. Admiral, perhaps now would be a good time to discuss coordinating our defensive efforts. The holographic display in the center of the Concordat Council chamber shifted to show a detailed cross-section of HMS Eris. Gasps echoed through the room as the true scale of humanity's achievement became clear. As you can see, Chen continued, her voice steady despite the chorus of interruptions. The original silicate mantle was repurposed into a layered defensive shell. The core was converted into our primary power generation system, a controlled quantum singularity surrounded by exotic matter containment fields. The Thraxi representative, a methane-breathing entity whose environmental suit glowed with bioluminescent patterns, pushed forward. Such technology should be beyond your capabilities. Our intelligence indicated your species had barely mastered rudimentary interplanetary travel. Chen smiled thinly. Your intelligence was working from flawed assumptions. You monitored our official space programs, our public scientific publications, our visible infrastructure. She tapped her neural implant. You never thought to look deeper. The display shifted again, showing a time lapse of Ceres being gradually hollowed out and reconstructed over decades. Project Celestial Shield began 112 years ago, when our long-range sensors first detected Voth scout ships in the Orc cloud. We knew they were watching. We knew the Concordat's history of non-intervention when minor species were threatened. High Counselor Vexmoria's crystalline form pulsated with agitation. You deliberately deceived the Concordat. We protected ourselves, Chen corrected. Just as the Arcturians concealed their quantum tunneling technology, or the Thraxi hid their atmospheric manipulation capabilities. Her eyes narrowed. We've been paying attention during our time here, Counselor. Every species in this chamber has secrets. The accusation hung in the air, unanswered because it was unanswerable. The Galactic Concordat had always been built on strategic omissions and carefully managed revelations. The Mendari representative, broke the uncomfortable silence. I would like to formally request technical details on how Earth achieved gravitational manipulation at this scale. For the Concordat archives, of course. Of course, Chen replied with a knowing look. The Mendari were not known for their military strength, but their engineering capabilities were unparalleled. An alliance would be mutually beneficial. The Arcturian delegation conferred in their silent crystalline communication method before their leader spoke. The human achievement is notable. However, the weaponization of celestial bodies violates the spirit, if not the letter, of Concordat conventions. Does it? Chen questioned. HMS Eris is not a weaponized celestial body. It's a vessel that happens to incorporate celestial materials. By your definition, any ship built from asteroids would be illegal. Before the debate could continue, an emergency transmission cut through the chamber's security protocols. Admiral Trellix's face appeared on the main display, his features strained. Council, the Voth have broken through our defensive line at Sirius. Their main fleet is advancing on the core systems. His voice became grave. Intelligence suggests they've deployed planet cracker weapons. The chamber erupted into chaos. Planet crackers were theoretical weapons designed to shatter a world's crust and trigger catastrophic tectonic events. The Concordat had banned research into such technology centuries ago. Chen caught Xanthor's alarmed gaze across the chamber. The Mendari homeworld was one of the systems now under threat. "High Counselor," Chen called out, her voice cutting through the pandemonium. "Earth formally requests emergency command authority for the combined defense fleet." "Preposterous," the Arcturian representative objected. "Your species has no experience coordinating multi-species battle groups." Chen's expression hardened. "HMS Pluto, Ceres, and Makemake are prepared to deploy immediately to the Sirius sector. HMS Haumea will remain in reserve to protect the core worlds." She paused deliberately. "That represents more firepower than the entire Concordat fleet combined." "The question isn't whether we'll take command, Counselor. The question is whether we'll do it with your cooperation or despite your objection." High Counselor Vexmoria's crystalline form dimmed momentarily, the equivalent of a resigned sigh. "The Council will recess for 1 hour to consider Earth's request." He fixed Chen with all 3 of his optical sensors. "I trust you'll use that time to provide a more comprehensive briefing on your vessel's capabilities, Ambassador." "Admiral Okonkwo is preparing that briefing now," Chen replied. "And given the circumstances, I believe my proper title is now Fleet Commander Chen." As the council members dispersed in stunned silence, Chen opened a secure channel to Earth. It was time to reveal the rest of humanity's arsenal. The command deck of HMS Pluto hummed with activity as Admiral Okonkwo reviewed the battle projections. Unlike the sterile, minimalist aesthetic of Concordat vessels, human ship design embraced a pragmatic fusion of technology and comfort. Living plants lined recessed alcoves, their carefully selected variety serving both as air purifiers and psychological anchors for the crew. "VOF fleet configuration is unusual," Lieutenant Commander Reiji Tanaka noted, his augmented reality interface highlighting anomalies in the enemy formation. As Pluto's tactical officer, he'd spent years studying VOF battle doctrine. They've positioned their heavy carriers at the vanguard rather than in protected positions. Okonkwo frowned. "Suicide tactics?" "Possibly." Or, Tanaka manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on energy readings from the Lid VOF vessels. "They've modified their ships. These power signatures don't match anything in our database." The planet crackers, Okonkwo realized. They've distributed the technology across multiple platforms instead of concentrating it in specialized ships. She opened a channel to the other planet ships. The faces of Captains Lewis, Lin, and Abara appeared on split screens. "Change of plans," she announced. "The VOF have dispersed their planet cracker technology throughout their fleet. We can't target specific vessels. We need to neutralize their entire vanguard simultaneously. Conventional weapons would take too long," Captain Lewis of HMS Ceres pointed out. "By the time we disabled the first wave, the others would be in firing position." Captain Lin of HMS Makemake suggested, "Coordinated gravitational lance strike." "Too power-intensive," Okonkwo replied. "We'd need recovery time afterward, leaving us vulnerable." Captain Abara of HMS Haumea, the youngest of the planet ship commanders, spoke up. "What about the Mendari entropy field?" They shared the specifications after the council meeting. Okonkwo considered this. The Mendari, grateful for Earth's protection, had provided technical data on their experimental entropy weapon, a field that accelerated the breakdown of specific molecular bonds. It had never been deployed at the scale they were considering. "Engineering," she called. "How quickly can we modify our field projectors to generate a Mendari entropy wave?" Chief Engineer Devi Patel's face appeared on another screen, her expression skeptical. "Untested technology in the middle of a battle. That's not ideal, Admiral." "Neither is watching inhabited worlds crack open like eggs," Okonkwo countered. "Time estimate." Patel sighed. 40 minutes for a reliable configuration. less if you're willing to accept significant risks to our containment systems. We have 30 minutes before the Voth are in range of the first habitable world, Tanaka reported. Okonkwo made her decision. Begin modifications immediately. Captains, coordinate with your engineering teams. She turned to communications. Patch me through to the Concordat flagship. Admiral Trellix appeared on screen, his normally composed features strained. Admiral Okonkwo, the Voth fleet has accelerated. They'll reach Mendari Prime in 28 minutes, she finished for him. We're implementing countermeasures, but I need your ships to create a diversion. The Concordat admiral's upper eyes blinked in their species expression of alarm. The last Concordat vessel that approached within firing range was vaporized instantly. I'm not asking your ships to engage directly, Okonkwo clarified. We need their attention focused on you while we maneuver into position. Sensor ghosts, drone swarms, radiation bursts, anything to confuse their targeting systems. Understanding dawned on Trellix's alien features. A distraction. We can manage that. As the communication ended, Okonkwo felt the subtle vibration through the deck plates that indicated HMS Pluto's massive engines were increasing power. Around her, the bridge crew worked with focused intensity, their neural interfaces glowing as they processed data streams too complex for conventional interaction. Admiral, Tanaka called out. New development. The Voth command carrier is broadcasting on all frequencies. On screen. War Primate's scaled visage filled the display, his reptilian eyes cold with calculation. Attention, Concordat worlds. Your defenses cannot save you. Your new human allies cannot save you. Surrender now, and your populations will be permitted limited autonomy under hegemony rule. Resist, and we will crack your worlds one by one. Okonkwo studied the Voth commander, noting the ceremonial scarification that marked his scales, signs of previous victories. No response necessary, she told communications. Actions will speak louder than words today. She turned to navigation. Lieutenant Imari, plot a microjump to these coordinates. We need all 4 planet ships in entropy field projection range simultaneously. As HMS Pluto's dimensional drive spooled up for the short-range jump, Okonkwo opened a private channel to Dr. Rahman on Mars. Fatima, we're deploying your entropy field adaptation. Any last-minute advice? The scientist's tired face showed both pride and concern. The field will cascade once initiated. You'll have approximately 12 seconds to withdraw before the reaction becomes self-sustaining. Understood. Wish us luck. Luck is for those who haven't prepared, Rahman replied with a thin smile. You've prepared for this moment your entire career, Sophia. The channel closed as HMS Pluto, along with its 3 sister ships, vanished into folded space, about to rewrite the rules of interstellar warfare once again. Captain Jamal Lewis stood motionless before the memorial wall aboard HMS Ceres. 342 names were etched in luminescent script against the obsidian surface, crew members lost during the Battle of Sirius. The entropy field had worked beyond expectations, neutralizing the Voth planet Cracker fleet, but the unexpected energy cascade had damaged Sirius' protective shielding during withdrawal. I still come here every cycle, he said quietly to Commodore Leon. I knew each of them personally. That's the protocol for planet ship captains. We interview every crew member before final assignment. The insectoid Concordat officer's antennae drooped in a gesture of respect. Your victory saved billions of lives, Captain. Victory always has a price, Lewis replied. The difference is whether those paying it volunteer for the cost. They continued their tour through a residential sector where families gathered in community gardens. Children played under artificial sunlight calibrated to match Earth's spectrum while parents tended hydroponic crops, part of Ceres' self-sustaining ecosystem. You brought civilians into a warship? Lion asked, mandibles clicking in what Lewis had learned was an expression of surprise. These aren't just warships, Lewis explained. They're generation vessels. Most crews sign on for minimum 10-year deployments. We couldn't ask them to leave their families behind for a decade. And if Ceres had been destroyed at Sirius, then humanity would have lost more than a weapon. We would have lost a community. Lewis paused as they reached a viewport overlooking an enormous manufacturing complex. That's something the Voth don't understand about us. We don't separate our military from our society. Every weapon we build, we ask ourselves, would we live inside it? Would we raise our children in its shadow? Leon's compound eyes focused on engineers dismantling damaged components from the battle. The Concordat Intelligence Directorate is already adapting their assessment of human psychology. Your willingness to commit such resources to defense suggests a deeply paranoid culture. Lewis laughed without humor. Is it paranoia when the threat is real? The Voth would have found Earth eventually, with or without the Concordat's introduction. As they continued walking, they passed a medical bay. Through the transparent partition, Leon observed human technicians undergoing treatment for neural interface injuries. One woman convulsed as doctors attempted to disconnect her implant, the neural pathways too deeply integrated to remove safely. Dimensional Navigation Officer, Lewis explained grimly. Fifth jump in 72 hours during the battle. The human brain isn't designed to process 5-dimensional coordinates repeatedly without recovery time. Yet you continue to use neural interfaces rather than AI systems. I can't improvise like a human navigator during combat. We've tried. Lewis' expression darkened. Every crew member knows the risks. The neural dampeners delay the damage, but eventually. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. They entered a secure laboratory where scientists were analyzing recovered Voth technology. Dr. Eliza Okafor, Ceres' chief xenotechnologist, greeted them with tired eyes and trembling hands. Another neural interface casualty, though hers was research grade rather than military. We've decoded their targeting algorithms, she reported, displaying a holographic representation of the Voth planet cracker system. It's ingenious, really. They use quantum entanglement to synchronize multiple impact points across a planetary crust, triggering simultaneous tectonic events. Can it be countered? Lewis asked. Yes, but it would require planetary-scale modifications, reinforcement of fault lines, installation of counter-resonance generators. She hesitated. The kind of planetary engineering humanity has already performed on Earth. Leon's antennae stiffened. Earth has been modified. Lewis exchanged a glance with Dr. Okafor before responding carefully. Commodore, what did you think we practiced on before hollowing out dwarf planets? The Concordat officer stepped back involuntarily. Your homeworld is also a weapon. Our homeworld is protected, Lewis corrected. There's a difference. Their tour continued to the bridge, where Lewis received an urgent communication from Fleet Commander Chen. He excused himself, leaving Leon with his first officer. In his private ready room, Lewis activated the quantum encrypted channel. Chen's expression was grave. The Voth have withdrawn to their territory to regroup, she reported. But we've intercepted communications suggesting they're calling in reinforcements from beyond the galactic rim. How many ships? Not ships, Jamal. Hive clusters. Chen's eyes reflected the data she was reviewing through her neural link. If our intelligence is correct, we're facing the awakening of the entire Voth species. Thousands of ships, possibly millions of warriors in stasis. Lewis absorbed this in silence before asking the question they were all thinking. Are 5 planet ships enough? The Concordat Council is asking the same question, Chen replied. Which is why I need you to prepare Ceres for a diplomatic tour of key member worlds. Show them everything. The families, the hydroponics, the neural casualties. Let them see both our power and its cost. You want their sympathy. I want their cooperation. Chen's expression hardened. Because what comes next will require resources beyond even Earth's capacity. We need to start building more planet ships, Jamal. Many more. As the communication ended, Lewis contemplated what that meant. More planets hollowed out, more crews subjected to neural degradation, More families living inside weapons of unprecedented power. He returned to Commodore Leon with renewed purpose. The Concordat needed to understand that humanity's terrifying weapons came from necessity, not ambition, and that the true price was paid not in resources, but in human lives willingly given. Captain Madeline fought to maintain consciousness as HMS Makemake's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. Blood trickled from her left ear, a neural feedback injury from the emergency jump they'd executed to intercept the Voth suicide squadron. Around her, the bridge crew worked frantically to stabilize the wounded planet ship. Gravitational containment at 43%, Executive Officer Hassan reported, his voice steady despite the chaos. Eastern Quadrant stabilizers are offline completely. Lynn pulled herself to the main engineering console, reroute power from the secondary weapons arrays. We need those stabilizers. Through the tactical display, she watched as HMS HFY engaged the remaining Voth vessels. Captain Abara's smaller planet ship moved with remarkable agility, its modified engines allowing combat maneuvers that defied its massive size. "Captain," communications called out. "Admiral Okonkwo is trying to reach us." The signals degraded but coming through. Okonkwo's face appeared on screen, fragmented by static. "Detect. Unusual movement. Voth formations." The transmission cut off as another explosion rocked Makemake. When the systems recovered, Lynn checked the long-range sensor data and felt her blood run cold. The main Voth fleet had disengaged from the battle, leaving their forward elements to be sacrificed as a distraction. "They're making a run for Sol," she realized aloud. All of this, it was a diversion. Hassan's eyes widened. But Earth has planetary defenses. Against conventional forces, yes. Lynn brought up the intelligence briefing from Fleet Command. But if they've consolidated their remaining planet crackers into a single strike force? She reopened the channel to HMS Pluto, desperate to warn Okonkwo. The Admiral's face appeared again, this time clear enough to see her grim expression. "We've seen it too," Okonkwo confirmed. HMS Pluto and Ceres are preparing for emergency jump to Sol. Can make the transit. Lynn looked at her ship's status report and knew the answer before her engineers delivered it. "Negative. Admiral, our fold drive is completely offline. We'd need at least 48 hours for repairs. Then maintain position and protect the Concordat core worlds with Hamya. We'll handle Earth's defense." As the transmission ended, Lynn turned to her tactical officer. "Show me the Voth assault force." The display revealed over 3,000 warships, the majority of the hegemony's remaining fleet, on a direct course for Earth. Their formation was tight and focused, optimized for a single devastating strike rather than extended combat. "They're committing everything," Hassan observed. "Their entire military." "It's a calculated gamble," Lynn replied. "They believe destroying our homeworld will cripple the planet ships. Some failsafe or control mechanism they imagine exists." "Is there one?" Hassan asked quietly. Lynn shook her head. "Each planet ship is autonomous, but destroying Earth would still be a devastating psychological blow." She straightened in her command chair, ignoring the pain radiating from her neural implant. "And we're not going to let that happen." She opened a channel to HMS Hamya. Captain Abara appeared on screen, his young face streaked with sweat but determined. "Nikolai, Make is crippled, but our weapons are still operational. I need you to tow us into optimal firing position." Abara blinked in surprise. "Tow? Captain, even Hamya's gravitational tethers aren't rated for a mass like Make. They don't need to hold indefinitely," Lynn replied. "Just long enough to position us for maximum coverage of the remaining Voth forces here. While Pluto and Ceres defend Earth, we need to ensure no reinforcements follow them." Understanding dawned on Abara's face. "The Thermopyla maneuver." Lynn nodded grimly. "We hold the pass, whatever the cost." As Hamya maneuvered to establish gravitational tethers with the damaged Make, Lynn addressed her crew shipwide. "This is your captain speaking. HMS Pluto and Ceres are en route to defend Earth from the main Voth assault. Our job is to ensure they face no additional threats from behind." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "Engineering teams report our dimensional drive is beyond repair. Our gravitational stabilizers are failing. But our weapons remain operational, and our resolve remains unbroken." Throughout the massive vessel, 40,000 crew members listened in silence, understanding what she wasn't explicitly stating. Make would not survive this battle. "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve with each of you," Lin continued. "Today, we stand as humanity has always stood, determined to protect our future, whatever the sacrifice required." She closed the ship-wide channel and turned to Hassan. "Begin evacuation of non-essential personnel to Halmia. Families first." "And you, Captain?" he asked quietly. Lin's gaze returned to the tactical display, where the remaining Voth forces were regrouping for another assault. "My place is on this bridge until the end. Now, let's make sure the Admiral has the time she needs to reach Earth." Across the massive vessel, weapon systems powered up for one final battle, while in the residential sectors, tearful farewells were exchanged as evacuation shuttles prepared to depart for the relative safety of HMS Halmia. 5 years after the Battle of Earth, High Counselor Elena Chen stood at the observation dome of the rebuilt Concordat Grand Hall. Below, Earth's transformed surface gleamed with the iridescent patterns of gravity stabilization fields, no longer hidden but proudly displayed as a testament to human ingenuity and survival. The hall itself embodied the new galactic order. Constructed from materials contributed by every Concordat species, its architecture blended dozens of cultural aesthetics. The central chamber, where representatives now gathered as equals rather than in hierarchical tiers, was supported by massive columns of Arcturian crystal, Mendari biocomposite, and earth granite, strength through diversity made literal. "They're ready for you, High Counselor," her aide informed her. Chen nodded, taking a moment to adjust her formal attire. A design that incorporated elements from her Chinese heritage alongside symbols of her position as the first human leader of the Galactic Concordat. The mural implant at her temple was now a badge of office rather than a hidden tool, its crystalline surface catching the light. She entered the chamber to respectful silence. Representatives from over 600 worlds rose as she took her place at the speaker's podium. 5 years ago, she began, our civilization faced extinction. Today, we gather to commemorate not just our survival, but our transformation. The display behind her activated, showing the current positions of the 4 surviving planet ships. HMS Pluto, commanded now by Admiral Hassan, following Okonkwo's retirement, patrolled the former Voth border regions. HMS Ceres orbited a dying star in the Calixian sector, its gravitational technology stabilizing the stellar mass to prevent a supernova that would have destroyed 12 inhabited worlds. HMS Halmia served as a mobile research station, its vast interior laboratories dedicated to developing technologies inspired by both human and Concordat sciences. And at the center of the display, a memorial image of HMS Make, lost in the final hours of the war, but forever remembered for holding the line against overwhelming odds. The technology that once hollowed out dwarf planets now creates habitats for displaced populations. Chen continued. The dimensional folding drives that carried our warships now form the backbone of our galactic transportation network. The neural interfaces that allowed us to control planet-sized vessels now facilitate medical breakthroughs in brain injury treatment. She gestured to a group of scientists and engineers entering from a side chamber, a diverse team of humans and aliens working together on what had once been classified military projects. Today we announce the Stellar Preservation Initiative, Chen declared. Using adapted gravitational technology from our planet ship program, we will extend the life of 53 stars currently approaching critical instability. Worlds that faced inevitable evacuation can now look forward to tens of thousands more years of habitability. Applause rippled through the chamber, particularly strong from species whose homeworlds were among those to be saved. But as we celebrate these achievements, Chen continued, her tone growing more serious. We must not forget the price paid to reach this moment. The display shifted to show the memorial garden on Mars, where monuments honored both the crew of Make and the neural interface pioneers who had sacrificed their health to develop the technology. Among the names, Dr. Fatima Rahman was prominently featured, her contributions fundamental but ultimately fatal as her damaged nervous system finally failed 3 years after the war. The Voth threat has been contained, but not eliminated, Chen reminded the assembly. Their remaining populations have accepted the terms of armistice, but history teaches us that peace requires vigilance. She nodded to a delegation of reformed Voth representatives, their once militant demeanor replaced by cautious diplomatic engagement. Under the watchful eyes of planet ship patrols, their civilization was slowly being reintegrated into galactic society, their technological brilliance channeled toward reparation rather than conquest. As the formal session concluded, Chen met privately with the Mendari ambassador, Chan 4, now elevated to his species' senior representative. The Deep Space Monitoring Network detected something concerning, he told her, mandibles twitching anxiously. Energy signatures beyond the galactic rim. Similar to Voth technology, but different, more advanced. Chen absorbed this news silently before responding. The Voth always claimed they were fleeing from something worse than themselves. Perhaps they were telling the truth. Should we inform the council? Kaisanfor asked. Not yet, Chen decided, but activate surveillance protocol Omega-9. And, she hesitated before adding, contact Director Kagawa on Mars. Tell him it's time to review Project Horizon. The Mendari's antennae quivered with curiosity. Another defense initiative. Chen smiled enigmatically. Let's just say that humanity didn't put all its eggs in one basket with the planet ships. She gazed out at the stars visible through the chamber's transparent dome. After all, why stop at planets when there are larger celestial bodies available? As she spoke, in a classified facility beneath the surface of Jupiter's moon Ganymede, engineers were completing the first prototype of a dimensional fold drive large enough to move a small star. Project Horizon, humanity's ultimate contingency plan, was proceeding on schedule. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's ingenuity in transforming dwarf planets into vessels of war, then instruments of peace. What they hadn't yet realized was that this was merely the beginning of what humanity could imagine and achieve when pushed to its limits.